In the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful, peace be upon you all. Lady Fatima Al-Zahraa is, until today, one of the most influential women in the history of mankind, and many wonder why. Of course, it's very difficult to explain that in 10 or 15-minute video or recording, but let us try to shed the light on a few aspects of Lady Fatima's life. Let us first speak of Sayyeda Zahraa, Lady Fatima, as a woman. We all know that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, did not have, or rather he fathered some males, but none of them survived beyond infancy. People used to mock him, say, look, you have no male sons, and thus, as soon as you have died, your bloodline is cut off, because it was culturally accepted or regarded as men or families are inherited and their bloodlines are survived by males. And so if you do not father any males, it means that your bloodline is cut off. And there, Surah Al-Kawthar, Surah number 108, came down or was revealed. In the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful, O Muhammad, we have granted you Al-Kawthar, meaning Fatima Al-Zahraa, Lady Fatima. So pray for your God and sacrifice. He who mocks you is the one who is cut off. The meaning of this particular chapter of the Holy Quran is very explicit, especially the last verse, verse number 3, where it says, he who mocks you, whose bloodline is cut off. So, in other words, the bloodline of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is survived through Fatima Al-Zahraa, who is a female. This has a huge significance, as a matter of fact. Very huge significance, if we think about it. But not only that, Prophet Muhammad, unlike people, he actually presented Fatima, his daughter, peace be upon her and him. He presented her in the mosque, saying, look, this is Fatima. Fatima is a piece of me. Whoever angers her, have angered me. And whoever hurts her, hurts me. What does that mean? Point number one, it means that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, although he fathered a female, Fatima Al-Zahraa, Lady Fatima, peace be upon her, he was not ashamed. On the contrary, he was so proud that he presented her to the public as Fatima is a piece of me. Point number two, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the final, last prophet. He wouldn't say anything out of just nothingness for nothingness. When he says this very powerful statement, Fatima is a piece of me, whoever hurts her, hurts me, it signifies that Fatima Al-Zahraa, Lady Fatima, is a very important character in Islam that cannot be separated from it, as a matter of fact. If we go on, also about Fatima Al-Zahraa as a woman, although we will now be shifting a little bit into her role as a daughter and as an influential woman, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, says, Fatima Ummu Abiha. Fatima is the mother of her father. What does that mean? Does it only mean that women or daughters should care for their fathers? No. Can a woman or a daughter be the mother of her father? No. This is metaphoric. But what does it mean? When the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was preaching Islam, he was attacked, and he returned home almost daily, bruised up, full of wounds. And Lady Fatima Al-Zahraa, peace be upon her, every day would treat his wounds, sanitize him, console him, listen to him. Any other daughter at the time, any other woman today, as a matter of fact, at her age, you know, we're talking about age what, 7, 8, 9, less or more, would have collapsed emotionally, would not have been able to handle the dilemma, the ordeal emotionally in the very first place. But Lady Al-Zahraa did. She handled this situation emotionally, mentally, and physically. She bore all the fatigue to support her father, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And she took the role of the mother, and that's why Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, Fatima is the mother of her father. Even in the battle, if we think about it, you know, nowadays it's traditional that most nurses are females, but when did this start? It actually started with Lady Fatima Al-Zahraa, peace be upon her. When? During the Battle of Uhud. Yes, during the Battle of Uhud, where Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, got injured. Imam Ali, peace be upon him, got some water to sanitize the wound, but it did not stop the bleeding. And so Lady Fatima Al-Zahraa came. She hugged her father. She cried, she wept, and she actually burned something and put its ash on the wound, that it actually stopped the bleeding. Over here we can understand 2 points. First, that Fatima Al-Zahraa, peace be upon her, took the role of the nurse 1430 years ago. She took the role of a supportive woman, a supportive nurse, supporting her father. And not any less importantly, she was the medical nurse who was treating the wound of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And that's not all. This actually tells us a lot about the closeness or the type of relationship between Lady Fatima Al-Zahraa and her father, that she actually supported him even when he was wounded. We go on until the Battle of Khandaq, Battle of the Tunnel. We all know about this battle when Muslims dug up a tunnel in order to prevent the polytheists from attacking their town. But then they were surrounded and they were under siege. And so Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, did not have any food for 3 days. And Lady Fatima Al-Zahraa, peace be upon her, actually remembered and thought of him. And so she brought him some bread and food. And there he said that Lady Fatima thought of him when others did not. What does that mean? Well, if we think about it from just any point of view that's not even Islamic, we would say, look, this woman 1430 years ago, at a time when women were most oppressed, what did she do? She thought of her father even during the battle. She treated his wound, she brought him food, she supported him emotionally, mentally, and physically. Yes. Let us move on a little bit to the role of Lady Fatima Al-Zahraa, peace be upon her, as an advocate. There are many aspects of this particular point. First, by advocating to people, telling people that Imam Ali, peace be upon him, is the true legitimate successor of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. She used to go around at night. She used to go around town with Imam Ali, peace be upon him, to lecture people saying, hey, I am Fatima Al-Zahraa, Lady Fatima, the daughter of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and I tell you that you were in a great error when you betrayed Imam Ali, peace be upon him, because he is the true successor. And when they said, well, it is he who gave up his right for succession of Prophet Muhammad, she said, that he did only what he was supposed to do. What did you want him to do? When you betrayed him, when you left him alone, you wanted him to leave Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, dead, unburied, and go about fighting for the succession? And did this mean anything to Imam Ali, peace be upon him, anyway? It did not. He often said that if it weren't in duty, that if succession of the Prophet, or if being the Khalifa of Muslims was not actually in duty, it did not mean to him anything more than issues, because he was not after power. He was after fulfilling his religious, moral duty. But Lady Fatima Al-Zahraa went and lectured people. She advocated. And she actually lectured the women women in general, after the death of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, when they came to visit her during her illness. She actually gave a long lecture, telling them, or expressing dismay over the way their husbands have acted and the way people have acted toward them, Ahl al-Bayt, toward Fatima and Ali, peace be upon them, and toward the Prophet himself. She pointed out to them what was going on. So Lady Fatima Al-Zahraa was an advocate, because even when Fadak was taken from her, she advocated, she asked for her right. She went and stood facing Abu Bakr and Umar, telling them, Fadak is my right. It's mine. And some might say, oh, she was after some money or some, land. It is not that. It is that she was telling people directly and indirectly, you should not let your right go away. Did she care for money? No. Did she care for land? No. Everybody knows that, logically. But it's because she was trying to advocate to protect Muslims. This was an indirect way to support Imam Ali in his right for succession of the Prophet. It is because it was for the best interest of Muslims. It is because she wanted to tell all women to stand up for their rights. She wanted to tell all Muslims to stand up for their rights. As Al-Hadith al-Sharif, the holy Hadith, says, مَا ضَاعَ حَقٍّ وَرَاءَهُ مُطَالِبٌ. Did she get Fadak back? Well, she passed away very shortly after, only 3 to 6 months after the death of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. But yet, although she didn't regain Fadak during her life, Fadak was returned to Ahl al-Bayt some years later. So, yes, it took some years, but it was returned. What does that signify? Advocacy. Standing up for your rights. Standing up facing the tyrant, because the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, says, أعظم الجهاد, the greatest struggle is a word of justice before a tyrant. And that's exactly what Fatima Al-Zahraa, peace be upon her, did. Even when she died, may her soul rest in peace, she actually advocated, because she told Imam Ali, peace be upon him, to bury her at night, in order that those who oppressed her, those who hurt her and hurt the Prophet, not attend her funeral. It was actually a final scream, even in her death, against injustice. Yes, that is Fatima Al-Zahraa, peace be upon her. Even when she died, she wanted to give a strong message. After the death of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, Muslims split. Lady Fatima Al-Zahraa, peace be upon her, would cry with grief and weep over her father at night, that all the town would hear her cries. And one might say, is this a sign of weakness? No, this is a sign of grief. She was trying to use her grief, her tears, to show people what a loss we have suffered. Not only the loss of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, as a prophet, as a guide, as a mentor, as a teacher, but also because Muslims split. Because as before Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was buried, Muslims split, and that was signaling a great disaster to the Islamic nation as a whole. And so Fatima Al-Zahraa actually successfully woke many people up through her tears. Of course, we're speaking of the tears of grief, not the tears of weakness. There's a huge difference. So please do note that. So now we have Fatima Al-Zahraa, Lady Fatima, peace be upon her. We addressed her role as a woman because she succeeded the bloodline of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. In the Shari'ah wal Abtar, Surah 108, he who mocks you is who is cut off, whose bloodline is cut off. And we addressed her role as a woman, as a nurse, as an advocate, because the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, presented her to the public, was not ashamed of her, because she actually toured the towns telling people about what a huge sin they've committed by disobeying the Prophet and by denying Ali his right of succession, which was, after all, for the best interest of Muslims. And that's why Imam Ali, peace be upon him, and she supported him in the decision, said, لَأُسَالِمَنَّ مَا سِلِمَتْ أُمُورُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. Prophet Imam Ali, peace be upon him, said, as long as the Muslim nation is intact, I don't care. It's fine. So he didn't give up his right. He just said that he will not fight the problem as long as the Islamic nation is intact. Because he did not want bloodshed. And that was oppression upon him the most. We can move on here to another point, which is actually a very important point about Lady Fatima, peace be upon her, is that she, when we say she toured the towns and lectured people, lectured women in her house and lectured people in their houses, it means that for us Muslims, women had an active role. She did not hide inside her house. No. She went and advocated. She lectured. What does that mean? It meant that we as Muslims, Lady Fatima Al-Zahraa, peace be upon her, was an advocate who went out and spoke in public 1430 years ago. And what does that mean? It means that the role of Fatima, peace be upon her, has a huge impact up till today. That is where women's rights began. They began at the life of Fatima Al-Zahraa, peace be upon her. And that's why, if we want to speak of women's rights, women as advocates, women as nurses, women as doctors, women as daughters, women as good wives, that's where we have to speak. That's where we have to go. That's whose life we have to study. And as a mother, just a quick note before we conclude, it is said that Lady Fatima, peace be upon her, had actually given a will to her daughter Zainab, peace be upon her, telling her what to do when Imam al-Hussein, her brother of Zainab, the son of Fatima, peace be upon her, will be in Karbala before he actually gets killed. She told her to go and hug him, and before horses step over his chest, and before the treacherous so-called Muslims at the time cut his head off and raised him on the head of a spear. So Lady Fatima Al-Zahraa was not a woman who just thought of today, of her life as today, or of her life as tomorrow, but she thought of the life or the lives of her children 50 years later. She gave her will to Zainab, peace be upon her, for something that she knew from the Prophet, peace be upon him, and from Angel Gabriel, peace be upon him. She actually gave a will for something that was going to happen 50 years later. And also, just a quick note before we conclude, Lady Fatima Al-Zahraa, peace be upon her, was not selfish. Every night, Al-Imamain Hassan and Hussein, peace be upon them, would wake up and find their mother praying and praying for others. Why for others, not for herself? Because she loved others. Because that is where you have to start. That is where you have to begin. When she advocates, it is because for all women, for all Muslims. Not because she wanted fadak. Not because she wanted fadak. We all know that. This is about it for this lecture. Thank you so much for listening. Peace be upon you all. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful. Inna a'tainaka al-Kawthar. O Muhammad, we have granted you al-Kawthar. Fasalli li rabbika wanhar. Pray for your God and sacrifice. Inna shani'aka huwa al-abtar. It's he who mocks you, whose bloodline is cut off. Sadaqallahu al-Aliyyul Azim. Peace be upon you all.